Hi BookTube! My name is Sarah and welcome to the Bookish Knitter. Today I am coming to you with my July 2022 month-end wrap-up and stats video. So in this video I will go through all of my stats that I like to keep every month and talk about those. And then I will be talking about my top 5 books of the month. So let's jump in and get started. Guys, in the month of July I read 26 books. I am very, very pleased with that stat. Super happy with it. In terms of my Goodreads goal, I am 50 books ahead of schedule. I've read 137 out of 150 books. I am at 91% complete that goal. I thought about upping it, decided not to. Let's leave it where it is and see where we end up at the end of the year. So in terms of star rating for the month, I read 1 1.5 star book, 1 2.5 star book, 6 3-star books, 9 3.5 star books, 6 4-star books, 2 4.5 star books, and 1 single 5-star read. My average star rating was 3.52, and that's actually down from June. In June, my average star rating was 3.70. So I had a couple of really low star rating, really low star books this month, or in July, which is disappointing, but it is what it is. Not every book is going to be fantastic. And overall, my books were pretty good, so I'm pretty happy with that. In terms of what I read, I have clearly been extremely influenced by spending a lot of time now with the girls over on the Killing Time with Cozies group, because in terms of genres that I read, my biggest genre of the month was cozy mysteries. I read 6 cozy mysteries in the month of July. I read 4 romantic suspense, 3 YA contemporary, 2 mystery, only 2 contemporary romances. Who am I? What's going on here? 2 mysteries. I already said 2 mysteries. 2 inspirational romances, which I guess you could consider contemporary as well. They are contemporary, they're just inspirational. 2 historical romances, 1 inspirational romantic suspense, 1 chick lit, 1 middle grade fiction, a classic, and a YA historical novel. I like to keep track of the number of category romance books that I read, Harlequin books, because my goal is to have that number be more than 30% of what I read, because I own so many of them and I want to get through more of them. But I just didn't quite hit that 30% mark this month. I had 27% were contemporary or category romances, excuse me. So I read three of them were intrigue novels. 1 of them was a romantic suspense, 1 was a special edition, 1 was a love-inspired suspense, and 1 was a love-inspired novel. So in terms of the age range that the books that I read were geared towards, I read 19 books that were geared towards an adult audience, 6 YA, which is high for me, and then 1 middle grade. And I think the YA part of that as well is also the fact that I'm rereading the Sweet Valley High and the Nancy Drew and stuff like that. So those are all, of course, YA novels. For time period, like when the books were published, I read 1 book that was published before the 1920s, and that was Persuasion by Jane Austen. I read 1 book published in the 1940s, which was an old Nancy Drew book. 3 books from the 1980s, 1 published in the 1990s, 4 books published in the 2010s, 3 books from the 3 books published in 2020, 4 published in 2021, and 9 books published this year in 2022. So that's pretty good. I always like that current year number to be high, meaning I'm getting through a lot more new releases, which is fun. I like backlist and new releases. If I had an even number of both, that would make me happy, but that's cool. I mean, even I still consider new releases to be a year or 2 old, so that's still pretty good. In terms of how I consumed my books, 12 of the books were audiobooks, 11 of them were ebooks, 2 were mass market paperbacks, and I had 1 graphic novel that slid its way in at the very end of the month. If you watched my last week's vlog, you know exactly what book that was. It was Mrs. Buttersworth and the Mad Baron by Julia Quinn, and it was ridiculously delightful, and I loved it. All 26 of the books that I read, I consider to be full-length novels. So, Mrs. Butterworth and the Mad Baron being a graphic novel. Maybe I should have tagged it as a graphic novel, but it was a novel. I'm not going to split hairs over this, people. 17 of the books that I read were part of a series, and 9 of them were standalone. Of those 17 books that were part of a series, 8 of them were brand new series that I started, and 9 of them were part of ongoing series. So that's a thing. I read a grand total of 6,508 pages, averaging to about 210 pages a day, which is pretty spectacular. So some random information, you guys. The highest rated book on Goodreads that I read was their Make Believe Match by Jackie Stef. This has an average rating of 4.67 stars. I gave it 4 stars. This is a really, really cute inspirational romance. I will talk more about it in just a few minutes. Stay tuned. My lowest rated book on the lowest rated book on Goodreads that I read was Death by Coffee by Alex Erickson. This one has an average rating of 3.06 stars on Goodreads. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was a fun little cozy mystery. It wasn't anything spectacular, but it was enjoyable. The longest book I read in terms of page length was Should I Tell You by Jill Mansell, coming in at 391 pages. And the shortest book I read, as always, was a Babysitter's Club book. We have Stacy's Lie by Ann M. Martin, came in at a whopping 140 pages. So now into my top 5 reads of the month. So as I always say, these go from least most favorite to most favorite. So coming in spot number 5, we have Lending a Paw by Laurie Cass. I gave this book 4 stars. It is the first book in the Bookmobile Cat Mystery series. And it is about a woman who drives a bookmobile. It takes place in Michigan. And her cat named Eddie sneaks onto the bookmobile with her. In her first inaugural run of the bookmobile, she stumbles upon a dead body. She doesn't run it over. She finds it somewhere else. And it turns out it was the man who was the benefactor of the bookmobile itself. Like, he's the one who supplied the money and stuff like that to get the bookmobile and get it up and running. So she's not being, like, pointed at for the crime, but she definitely wants to find out what's happening. And because one of the women that she worked with at the library is being looked at as a suspect, so she's trying to help. I really adored this. I thought it was so cute. I'm really looking forward to reading more in this series. I love the cat. The one thing is, though, on audio is that the cat talks a lot, and the narrator always does the meow, meow, meow. And I mean, it's fine the first 8 or 9 times. After that, you're pretty much done with it. So I guess I started to tune it out the more I read the book, like on audio. So it was really cute, though. I really enjoyed it. Next up is a book I just mentioned, which was Their Make Believe Match by Jackie Stef. I gave this book 4 stars, like I said. This is the author's debut work, and it is a Harlequin. It's a love-inspired novel. This is about a woman. It's about a couple who's Amish. They are both Amish. He is new to the community. This takes place in Pennsylvania. I think it's in the town called Bird in Hand. I remember that because it's a very unique name. And she's a little outside of the normal Amish. Like, she doesn't care about quilting. She doesn't care about making bread. She wants to be outside in nature and, you know, kind of doing more things that the boys would be doing, because of course within the Amish culture there are very strict gender roles, right? And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's how the Amish work. And that's not what she likes to climb trees. She likes to, you know, lay in the grass. She likes to, you know, be just a little outside of the norm. I mean, she's still Amish, and it's not like she's questioning her faith in any way. She just kind of more questions, well, why can't I build the barn with them? Why do I have to be in here in the sewing circle, kind of an idea. And then she meets the male lead. I can't remember their names at this point. I do apologize. And he has suffered a tragedy. Him and his mom are visiting Bird in Hand for an extended period to stay with his aunt. While his mother, they're hoping for his mother to heal. She witnessed a terrible accident that involved the death, actually, of this man's betrothed, like his fiance. So he lost his fiance. His mother witnessed the accident. She has gone mute. And then he meets her, our female lead, and she kind of brings him out of his shell and teaches him, like, yes, you can love someone again. Even though you loved her, you could love me too, potentially, right? And what I really enjoyed about this book, and I talked about this in my most recent vlog, was my big issue with a lot of romance novels are that when the former spouse dies, or fiance or girlfriend or boyfriend, when the significant other passes away, something about them later on is made to be like, oh, they weren't for me. So clearly they weren't for me. They weren't my one true love. Where in this book, he loved, I remember her name being Rebecca, like the girlfriend or his fiance. And he loved her, and that doesn't change. That doesn't make any change. It just teaches Sadie. Her name is Sadie. Like, our female lead's name is Sadie. That he can love Sadie as well. and still hold on to the memory of Rebecca, which I really, really liked. So spoiler alert on that one, but it's a romance novel. We all know that at the end they're going to end up together. But that was my big thing that I really loved about this book. So yeah, highly, highly recommend it. And I know I did not talk about this one on my vlog, any of my vlogs, because it was supposed to be for my Harlequin Anticipated Reads vlog that, due to technology and human error by me, will not be going up, so I do apologize, you guys. But there's your review of that one. It was one of my favorites. Next up, we have South Dakota Showdown by the great Nicole Helm. I gave this book 4.5 stars. This is a Harlequin intrigue novel. It is the first in the Badlands Cop series. It's one of my favorite covers. There's something so intriguing about this cover. So it is about a guy who's got 5 brothers. It's him and 5 boys, or him and 5 brothers. And they are all the sons of this guy who is the leader of a motorcycle gang. And he is trying to infiltrate the gang. And his ex-girlfriend comes to him for help because her younger sister is potentially part of a human trafficking organization within this motorcycle gang. So there's kind of a lot going on in this book, but it was really, really good. Highly enjoyable. I really, really recommend that you check it out. Next up, we have another intrigue novel. So coming in spot number 2. This is also a book that I did not talk about in my weekly vlogs in July because it was another one that would have been for the Harlequin Anticipated Reads video. But I'm going to share it with you now, you guys, because you should definitely go and read it. And that book is Shielding Her Son by the great Katie Richards. This is the 4th book in the West Investigation series. So in this book, it's about a woman who has a 10-year-old son, and they are living kind of in, I don't want to say rural upstate New York, but they're definitely outside of New York City. So it's like a very small, quiet community. She's trying to open a bed and breakfast. Now, her neighbor, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, his name is James. He is one of the West brothers in this West Investigations group. And he has been sent to find out if this woman is who she said she is. So he's kind of been spying on her in a way and living in this small cabin next to her house. Then a series of accidents start to befall her. And it's, you know, they don't know why these things are happening. Then these accidents start escalating to stuff that's even more scary, that they potentially almost set her house on fire, that someone shoots at her when she's getting out of her car, and she's trying to protect her son because she thinks that it's her deceased husband's family coming to get the boy because there's a whole backstory with her husband. He died in a car accident before the little boy was, like, before anybody even knew that she was pregnant. He died in this car accident. So his family didn't know, like, really that she was pregnant and she took off. And she didn't want the grandson kind of taken by his father's family and raised in a certain way. Didn't, like, you know, she didn't like the way necessarily that her husband had been raised and the kind of man her father-in-law was and things like that. So there's kind of a lot, again, going on in this book too. And I'm doing a rubbish job of explaining it. Read it. Just read it. Read all of the West Investigations books. They are all fantastic. I really, really enjoy them. And last but not least, coming in spot number 1, my favorite book of the month was Deadly Summer Nights by the great Vicki Delaney. I'm assuming she's great. This is the first book I've read by her, and I loved it. So I'm a little concerned now about any other books that I read by her. Maybe I won't like them as much. But like I said, I gave this book 4 stars. It's the first book in the Catskills Summer Resort Mystery Series. It takes place in 1953 in the Catskills in New York City, or New York State, excuse me. It's about our main character named Elizabeth. And she runs this resort. Think of it like Kellerman's from Dirty Dancing. And they find a dead body and blah, 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 blah. The story goes from there. I don't want to give a lot away on this one. I talked about this one very recently in a vlog. I loved it. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And I am really, really, really looking forward to reading book number 2 in August. So yay for that. So anyway, guys, that is all that I have for today's video. I do hope that you enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments below what was your favorite book that you read in the month of August, or July, excuse me. What was your favorite book that you read in the month of July? And until my next video, everybody, take care and happy reading. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye, guys.